Welcome to the Patriot Project SF, where we will be analyzing and breaking down SF's political climate. Today's topic of analysis is concerning San Francisco District's Congressional Candidate Debate, which occurred on May the 4th. And we'll begin this analysis by taking a look at the candidates' opening statements.
You've been told that politicians are only capable of so much and only care for themselves. I do not intend to be that kind of a politician. I've always gone above and beyond the call of duty, working as hard as possible for the people and district that have helped put me in the position I'm in today. We are here to represent real Americans and not to reduce our political discourse to mere bumper sticker slogans. In this age of populist identity, I will work to strengthen and maintain this nation's commitment to democratic values. I look forward to answering your questions and hopefully serving the people of the state of California in the national legislature. Thank you.
Beginning with Mrs. Zulkowski's opening statement, she said, as you've seen, I've always gone above the call of duty, working as hard as possible for the district that has put me where I am today. And we're here to represent real Americans and not to reduce our political discourse to mere bumper sticker slogans. Which is pretty funny, actually, because that entire opening statement would be a pretty good bumper sticker. There wasn't a whole lot of policy kind of laid out of what she would do. A lot of it was just kind of political rhetoric, and it was really a very standard and kind of safe opening statement. Next up is Mr. Whaley, the Libertarian candidate, and his opening remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, on this beautiful May day. My name is Anthony William Whaley, and I'm here to state my case for why I should be your congressional representative for the 17th District. We've already seen the failures that both the bickering Republicans and Democrats have had. Ariana Zulkowski loves to pump up the fact that she was on the San Jose City Council, but what did she actually accomplish there? She failed the city of San Jose when she did nothing to help the rising housing prices that she claims she's going to fight, as prices have gone up 4% in the last year and are projected to continue to rise into the next year. Where was she when the disastrous flooding in San Jose happened? Why didn't she and the city council plan for something like this? I don't know. Why hasn't the response been better? And why are the city council and Ms. Zulkowski doing very little to help the people of San Jose in this dire time? While this is going on, Ms. Zulkowski is busy running for a promotion to Washington instead of helping the council solve the issues here at home. Furthermore, for both candidates, they haven't got the sort of a policy plan for the people to be aware of. The interest groups that they all got, they all said they gave them plans and ideas for what they're going to do, but they haven't released anything to the media, as I have, and they haven't posted anything other than vague wishes on their websites. They haven't given the people anything to work on. Ms. Zulkowski's website lists education, housing, and women's health care as their platform. Under none of them does she list plans other than, I want to help, I want to work with you to fix this issue.
Time's almost up.
What does that mean? That's great, but literally every politician in existence says that, and it seems to me that she has no idea of how to actually accomplish any of these wishes of hers. On Mrs. Pombo's website, she runs into the same issue when she makes the couple of promises this time regarding jobs, infrastructure, and the environment. Vote for freedom and transparency. Vote Whaley 2017.
So Mr. Whaley comes out guns blazing in his opening remarks and really paints Mrs. Zulkowski as if she should be the villain in the next Batman movie. She's that terrible. All her policies are horrible. She's just awful. So it's funny the amount of time he spends kind of looking at other candidates rather than the virtues of his own policy, and therefore running kind of a dirty campaign. But maybe there's some strategy there in that he has to distinguish himself between the Republican and the Democratic candidates, as seeing that they hold very little market share, the Libertarians do, in the political arena. So he's trying to paint maybe the other candidates in a more negative light, offering himself as the alternative, but there wasn't a whole lot that he offered of himself, rather just painting others in a bad light. So he started off his campaign pretty strong and pretty negatively. To further highlight my point,
Ariana Zulkowski, she was on the when she did nothing to help, as she claimed. Where was she? Why didn't she? And Ms. Zulkowski, Ms. Zulkowski's, she has no idea. She runs when she makes the vote for freedom and transparency, vote Whaley 2017.
Next up is Republican candidate Ms. Pombo and her opening remarks.
All right, hello everyone. Good afternoon, members of the media, Councilwoman Lukowski, fellow candidate Whaley, voter. I'm so honored to be here sharing a stage with other interested citizens. It makes me so happy to know that there are so many interested in the well-being of our great district and of our country. I'm here today to discuss the issues and to talk about opportunities to improve our community. Opportunity in all its forms is the cornerstone of our American identity. Opportunity for industry, opportunity for the immigrant, opportunity for all of us together to meet our greatest challenges. I believe that my opponents mean well. We want many of the same things. I know, however, as a successful businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and a mother, I am equally qualified to organize smart policy for our district's broad range of communities. We will strive to improve the roads and transit systems that we need to feed our green energy sector. We will reward innovators and problem solvers for meeting our greatest challenges by reducing their tax burden and supporting the infrastructure they need to build their businesses and hire employees. We will support our neighbors, the homeowners of this district. We cannot allow ideology to become more important than common sense. Councilwoman Zlukowski wants to take away the rights of a parent and give them to the government. Parents alone, for better or worse, deserve a say in what their children are exposed to.
30 seconds.
The opportunity to raise one's family as they see fit is a sacred American right. We cannot go blindly towards opportunity. It has to be built intelligently. As a successful businesswoman, I am especially poised to put in place in policy that is good for our district, for our nation, and our world. We cannot allow the Republican Party to continue its own insane march into ideology. We must instead support smart policy that's good for Americans of all backgrounds. Thank you.
So juxtaposed to Mr. Whaley's opening remark, Ms. Pombo opens up and says, I believe my fellow candidates mean well, which is kind of a breath of fresh air considering the last negative opening statement. Hers is quite positive, which is very likable, so points to you. Points for you, Miss Pombo. You go, Miss Pombo. Did I really just make a Mean Girls reference? All joking aside, there are a lot of things to really like about this opening statement. Although she speaks rhetorically about opportunity being the cornerstone of our nation, opportunity to industry, immigrants, and all people, she really dives into some concrete things, like policies she'll be supporting, such as her striving to improve roads and the transit system, rewarding innovators and problem solvers by reducing the tax burden and giving tax incentives. And thirdly, supporting infrastructure. So she's really diving in concretely to the policies she'll be trying to enact if she's elected, something that the other candidates didn't do as well. So beginning the debate, the first question was asked of Mrs. Zolkowski concerning housing. She was asked, do you think the housing crisis should be treated as a public health crisis?
I do. I think the housing in our district has become very dense. It's very much overpopulated, and I'm concerned about the health code violations that come with that. I think we need to build better, more ecologically friendly, and more cost-effective housing. I do think it's a health crisis. I think the overpopulation of the apartment complexes in our district have become unsafe, and I'm concerned about the situation, and I think we need to build better, more ecologically friendly, more affordable housing.
So Ms. Olkowski says that the housing crisis is a public health crisis. It is characterized by overcrowding and as being very unsafe. So I think members of the district have to ask themselves, how much will this cost to build new ecological housing? As spending the budget in one area, it necessarily begets an opportunity cost in which that budget cannot be spent on other issues. So if you agree with Ms. Zolkowski that the housing crisis should be treated as a public health crisis, and this is an important area in which we should spend the budget, she may be a good candidate in which to support. So next up is Mr. Whaley, in which he is kind of asked about, during his opening statement, he really talks about the failings of the Democratic and Republican Party and candidates, but really doesn't offer anything concrete of his own. So for his first question concerning housing, He is asked, do you have a concrete plan for solving the housing crisis?
I was actually cut off before I was able to finish my opening statement. But the solution in building more housing lies in basic economics. It lies in supply and demand, which is the core of capitalism. We need to build more housing, as Olkowski said, but she didn't say how. We need to deregulate zoning areas to allow for more residential areas and more high-rises, dotting the skylines of San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose. We need to and probably most importantly of all, we need to repeal Prop 13 and allow the market to work. Repealing Prop 13 would make it even easier for businesses to build new housing, and the more housing there is, the lower price for rent, the lower price of rent will be, the lower general housing prices are, as well as tax incentives to encourage more companies to build more housing. That would actually allow businesses. Right now in like San Francisco and San Jose, there's way too many regulations harming the building of new housing. We need to cut down on that a little bit. Like not too much, obviously, where there's going to be like too much environmental damage, but enough to where we can actually do something instead of being stifled by government regulation that the Democrats love to propose. It's basic economics.
So Mr. Whaley really shows his libertarian disposition in that he calls for deregulation. Deregulate zoning areas to allow for residential area expansion. So he's really taking the stance that it shouldn't be government spending that alleviates this issue, but it should be government setting up policy in such a way as to incentivize the market and market agents to rectify this issue. So if you like the idea of deregulation and you think this issue can be effectively solved in the market, Mr. Whaley is a good candidate to support on this issue. So the next question concerning housing asked of Republican candidate Ms. Pombo is it the role of government to regulate the price of housing? If so, to what extent?
I don't think that it's the government's job to regulate housing prices. I think that in our district in particular, it's important to not build any more of these low-cost housing. There's already 19,000 low-cost housing units available in San Jose. There's just so much traffic already between the citizens of our area and having them to get to work wherever they may be. I think that if we were to build any more low-cost housing here, it would be just an absolute nightmare for our working residents. It would add to their commute times, just rob them of the precious time that they have to get the work done in their day.
Whereas both Democratic and Libertarian candidates agree that there is a housing crisis, Republican candidate Ms. Pombo disagrees, saying that the government should have no role in the expansion of housing, saying that doing so would just create a further burden on commuters, saying that their commute is already far too long. So if you disagree with the statement that there is a housing crisis, or you believe that the government should play no role in alleviating such crisis, Ms. Pombo would be a good candidate to support. The next debate topic is race and race-related issues. The question asked of all the candidates, but beginning with Mr. Whaley, is what should be done to reduce the number of police-related shootings?
As a black man myself, I actually grew up in the Hunters-Point district of San Francisco, where a lot of these issues are occurring. And I definitely believe that police training should be improved to make them less trigger-happy, but always remaining extremely cautious at the same time, as we aren't ignorant to the extreme difficulties of the job. On top of that, we need to have more community outreach, which is probably the most important thing, between minority communities and the neighborhood police station / department, and also hiring more minority officers. The police are there to serve and protect, not to shoot and kill. They are not there to be a secret police hunting down minorities, as I've heard some extreme liberals say. The issue now is that neither side trusts the other, and that's a major obstacle today. More community outreach will lead to more trust, which will lead to more success in investigations, as people will be more willing to work with the police, and there'll be less deaths on all sides. My solution would include better training, but the biggest part of it would be more community outreach and more hiring of minority police officers.
And the same question is asked of Mrs. Olkowski.
That's actually one of the things that we agree on. I also believe that we need to have more training, better training. I think I work very close with the NAACP. I received an endorsement from the NAACP. I feel that it's almost systemic. I think that these practices have been ingrained in the system for so long that there needs to be some kind of cut, and we need to go in a new direction, and we need to direct our officers as well. I agree, we need more minority officers at different levels, police chiefs, people out on the streets. I think we need variety, and I think we also need to work to bring an end to police brutality. I believe racial profiling is a problem that we need to address, and we need to make all cops responsible for their actions.
So there's a lot of overlap in the answers given between the Libertarian and the Democratic candidate, seeing that they both approve of improved training, community outreach, and a higher percentage of minorities in the police force. Where they differ, however, is Ms. Solkowski proposes that there needs to be an end to profiling, and also there's a need to make cops responsible for their actions. The natural question that arises, given those statements, is how would you plan to do so? What policies specifically would go into effect to rectify these issues? And the Republican candidate is asked the same question as the previous two. What should be done to reduce the number of police-related shootings?
We really need to create a dialogue between the law enforcement branches and people who are discriminated against, mainly minorities. I believe that if we created a better dialogue between everybody, it would create more trust in our community, like fellow candidate Whaley said. And you also, this is another point that we all agree on, you over there. Neither side really trusts each other anymore, and I believe if we created a better dialogue, it would create more sense of community, more sense of trust, and not like either side is out to get each other, just police are doing their jobs.
So we see with Ms. Pombo's response more consensus on this issue, but also maybe a little bit of the same criticism in that she was very vague and it was kind of a paltry answer. There is the solution of better dialogue between the community and the police force, but not a whole lot of concrete policy on how this would be done and how this would be rectified. So the last topic of the debate was concerning guns, and the question was asked of all the candidates, starting with Ms. Solkowski, which was, if at all, in what ways are current gun policies and legislation inadequate? How would you rectify this?
I think the biggest issue is there's not enough regulation on gun purchases. I think we need to work to close the gun show loophole. I think too many people are able to get their hands on guns through private sales, and that needs to be addressed. I understand a person has the right under the Second Amendment to obtain a gun. However, I do think there needs to be some regulations on purchases of guns.
So we see here that Ms. Solkowski takes a really hard stance on this issue of guns. She's saying that there's not enough regulation on gun purchases. She would like to close the gun show loophole, and there are too many people that can get their hands on guns through private sales. So if you would like to see a reduction of gun sales in the population, stricter control over the flow of firearms, Ms. Solkowski would be a good candidate in which to support. The same question is asked of Mrs. Pombo.
I'm going to first start off by saying that I support our constitutional right to bear arms. I support all of our constitutional rights that were in place in the Bill of Rights in that one. It was a good thing they added in there.
Good on those founders.
But I do believe that there should just be, it's got to be common sense regulations. You have to have strict background checks before you're allowed to buy the guns. You have to have increased restrictions on people who are mentally ill. So along with those points, I'm also absolutely not against working across the aisle, hearing everybody's opinions on these subjects. Definitely, like even when we were doing interest group discussions, I made sure to talk to each and every interest group, even ones that didn't align specifically with my party background. So yeah, basically to sum this whole thing up, I think that the right to bear arms is a constitutional right, because it is, and it should be taken away from people. But common sense gun regulations should be in place.
So I think Ms. Pomo takes a very traditional Republican stance concerning this issue of guns, stating she would support strict background checks, really trying to keep firearms out of the hands of the mentally ill, but predominantly relying on common sense regulations. Pretty standard stuff for a Republican. If you support this line of thinking, should be a good candidate to support in this area. And the final question of the debate is asked of Libertarian candidate Mr. Whaley, which is, again, if at all, in what ways are current gun policies and legislation inadequate? And how would you rectify this?
Final candidate.
Of course, the Democrats want more regulation. That's all they ever want. We need to remove current extremely restrictive gun control laws. There's a lot of issues that we need to get rid of. The background checks we have, those aren't being enforced very well. Those are okay. I'm okay with that. Because that makes sense. I mean, you don't want just like criminals buying guns. That's the entire point. But like a lot of the things, like the recent gun control legislation, like the assault weapon ban and the 10 cartridge limit ban, that's going a little bit too far.
So in stark contrast to Ms. Zolkowski, Mr. Whaley takes the opposite position very strongly, saying that we need to remove restrictive gun laws, that although he's okay with background checks, he would like to remove other restrictive gun laws such as the cartridge limit ban, seeing them as unnecessary and actually hurtful in protecting our population. So if you support the right to bear arms and would like to see some of the restrictive gun laws repealed, Mr. Whaley is the candidate to support in this area. So in concluding this analysis, I would really like to emphasize the strength of each of the candidates. Although I've criticized them and at times poked a bit of fun at them, I would really like to say that they are strong in their specific areas given their policies. And so it will not be my position to publicly endorse any of the candidates. I've really hoped to give you as neutral as I can an analysis of all the candidates, so you can find the candidate which aligns with your personal interests the best. Once again, this has been Patriot Project SF. I hope to have informed your vote concerning this congressional race, and I've been your host, Joseph Brown. Thank you.